Erika Zini presenta Bookmania.
Interviste, anticipazioni e consigli di lettura per il tempo libero.
Go tell a friend.
Bookmania, dove il libro è protagonista.
Un saluto a tutti e bentornati all'appuntamento con i libri. Oggi abbiamo un romanzo che ci ha davvero colpiti, si intitola La rabbia dell'orso di Ingebjorg Berg Holm, autrice pubblicata dalla casa editrice Carbonio Editore. Un romanzo davvero molto particolare, potremmo definirlo un eco-thriller, ma davvero diverso dal solito, con una scrittura limpida e pura che merita davvero di essere letto e approfondito. E siamo proprio in compagnia della sua autrice. Welcome with us.
Thank you so much.
It's a very pleasure to have you here. But first of all, thank you. Then this is your first book translated in our country, and we are curious to know you better. You're an architect and most of all, an amazing writer. How start your passion in stories?
Well, it's difficult to say when it started. I read a lot when I was a child. And I read especially my mother had a lot of classic crime fiction, Agatha Christie and so on. And I read it all and thought that a crime fiction writer, that would be the best thing to be in the whole world. But then another passion took hold. So I studied and finally became an architect. And when I was staying home with my newborn daughter, then this old dream came roaring up. And then that's when I started writing, and it just grew very big, very quickly.
There are two wonderful works, both of them. And this book, The Anger of the Bear, is an uncommon psychological eco-thriller. What inspires you to write this story? Which is the genesis?
Well, it is always very difficult to tell exactly where does the story come from, because between books I have been like, I'm trying to get the story, trying to construct the plot or get inspiration, and I get more and more frustrated and thinking, oh, I can never ever write again. It's empty up here. But then just like it just rises like from underneath the surface. The story just came. And in this instance, I think it was the story in the book, it is a story about Nina's grandmother up at Svalbard during World War II. That was my original idea, because I thought that writing a thriller about that's a difficult word, meteorologists stranded up at Svalbard, like they were German scientists up at Svalbard during the World War II. Doing research and getting tracked by storms and the war. I thought that was a brilliant starting point for a thriller. But then it just turned in my head and became something completely different, but with a little bit of the original story.
Your book is written through 3 points of view, Nina and Njål. I hope it's the right translation or pronunciation. There are a couple of glaciologists who have a daughter, Lotta, and work together in a special project. And Sol, ex-wife of Njål, she is a priest. In your book, we can follow them in their intimacy, in their thoughts. May you tell us something about them?
Yes, let's start with Njål. You were pretty close with the name.
Njål, okay.
He is, he has been married to Sol, who is the priest, and they wanted desperately to have a child. That was their dream. And Sol couldn't have any kids. So eventually Njål left her, and he got together with Nina, who was his student at the time. So that was not a perfect transmission. And maybe some ethical issues there. But they made it work for a while, and they had Lotta. And the thing is that Nina never wanted a child. She was pretty decisive about that. She didn't want a child, but she got pregnant and she had Lotta. But that relationship didn't last either. And at the starting of the novel, Njål and Nina work together at the climate research center where they both work and compete. And they also start to prepare for a custody battle over Lotta that is getting to be more and more intense and destructive during the novel. And Sol, his former wife, is still close by, longing for the child that she never had.
And they have 3 different voices in books. Was it difficult for you to write about them, or it was simple?
It's neither difficult nor simple, but it is something that I work with a lot. It is very important to me that they had each their very specific voice, that they were sounded different. I have worked a lot with the choice of words, the rhythm of the language, their metaphors, all of that to make 3 distinct different voices, not only what they think, but how they think about it. And it feels a bit like, I think, being an actor, I guess. You have to just put yourself really in that perspective and try to feel and think like the person you are describing.
You did it because they are very different one for each other, and we as reader kept it very well. So yes, it was I think difficult, but it is perfect, the result. And nature is a real character in your book. We are fascinated by it and scared at the same time. Nina and Njål work for it, but Njål in particular is very near to nature, usually have weekends like Viking. In your country, nature is overwhelming. How is your relationship with nature?
First, I like to say that I'm so glad for the Italian readings of the book and the Italian reception, because that your take on the nature in the novel, it pleases me to see that you read it like that. And yes, I have tried to give each of the 3 characters their specific relationship with nature. It varies between them, and it's very big part of them. And Njål, as a Viking reenactor, that is kind of his take on nature, civilization, trying to unite it for himself. But for me, I'm not a Viking reenactor, but I have done some research on the field, and I have some friends who does that. Me, myself, I think I'm a typical Norwegian. I go for hikes. I live in Bergen, like the characters, and that is a city surrounded by mountains. But not so very wild and steep mountains, quite nice and cozy mountains that you can walk up on a Saturday and then walk down and have dinner in the city. So we do that with the family. And it's fascinating because humans have been in these mountains and that wilderness for thousands of years, and we have marked it. There are tracks there that has been there hundreds of years. And I have been walking in these mountains when I wrote the book and thought about what is natural here. Is the track unnatural? It is as old as a lot of the other things surrounding me. It's as old as a lot of the species living there. Is it natural? Is it unnatural? I think that's many interesting thoughts you can have in an environment like that.
Your portrait of the Svalbard island is magical and frightening. Frightening also because there is more evident the climate change. Have you ever been there? Which is the situation?
Yes, I went there as research for this book. I'd never been there before. And I was there some intense days. And it is really like no other place I have ever been. It is quite spectacular. And the strange thing is that it is so overwhelming, and it is almost impossible to imagine that anything can ever change that place. It is so eternal, kind of. And as a human, you feel tiny like you could just disappear at any time and it would be no difference. And to contemplate that actually we are much more of a danger to that place than the other way around, that is hard to imagine, but that is how it is. And the glaciers that I write about, that Njål and Nina are doing research on, they are melting as we speak, and they will melt completely. That is, we know that they will melt and that they will be gone, and that Svalbard will, as it is now, is doomed. But we don't know exactly when. It can be 20 years or 200 years from now, and that is a very big difference.
Yes.
But to be there and see that special landscape and that special world, and know that it seems like it has been like there forever, and that all we humans have done is just scraping the surface. It's much bigger than us. And to know that actually we have doomed that landscape, that world, that is horrifying, actually. That is very scary.
It's a very special place to visit, surely. And another important theme is maternity, how women and men live it, and how many prejudices there are to face off. Was it one of your proposal provide a more real and less artificial picture of what that means?
Yes, I think you're right. At some point, it became clear to me that I was actually writing about nature around us, and also nature about human nature. And then I absolutely had to write direct and honest about some of the very core things about being a human, as both an animal and as a product of civilization. And at the core is, making babies, giving birth, trying to raise them. So I had to just give a very honest view of that. And every time I wrote about something and thought this is a bit direct, or this is a bit sad, or when it was something I was a bit like, oh, then I knew that, okay, that is what I need to write about.
It's a very big team.
Yeah.
And it's
so
usually...
Sorry, it was very important for me to have that, kind of harsh but honest view about how it can be, and that it is not only to, give birth to a baby and then it's just like, oh, cozy. It is much more to it than that. I have had 2 babies, so I know that it isn't that easy.
Yes, it's not all gold in maternity,
no.
obviously. And your women in the book are very different, but very common. Every reader can feel near them in some times, in some things. We don't talk further about books, but I'm very curious. What would you like the reader will take with them after finishing read your book?
Yes, that is a question I wish I had a clear answer to. But I think it is important to me to not have an agenda in the book. It isn't a big morale at the end. But I hope that I have raised some interesting questions for the reader and giving food for thought about who we are in this world. It's maybe banal, but that is a question that we all wonder about, isn't it?
I think the better books are the books who raise answers and not questions and not answers. So I think your book do this work very well, reader.
Thank you.
At this point, thank you for this interview, and we look forward to read more about you in Italy.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to see you.
Erika Zini presenta Bookmania.
Interviste, anticipazioni e consigli di lettura per il tempo libero.
Go tell a friend.
Bookmania, dove il libro è protagonista.